right, welcome back, everybody, to another virtual Facebook Live, YouTube Live, 1 Million Cups, Bentonville. My name is Caleb Talley. I'm a Director of Marketing and Events at Startup Junkie, but also a proud 1 Million Cups Bentonville organizer. And we appreciate you for tuning in wherever you're tuning in from, whether you're on the way to work, dropping the kids off, brushing your teeth, getting ready, whatever you're doing. For those who might not be familiar with 1 Million Cups, it was created by the Kauffman Foundation on the notion that entrepreneurs discover solutions and engage with the community over 1 million cups of coffee. So I've got mine in a can today. Hope you have yours. Kauffman Foundation developed 1 Million Cups in 2012 as a free program designed to educate, engage, and inspire entrepreneurs around the country. Through the power of volunteers, 1 Million Cups has grown to more than 160 communities. And as a program of the Kauffman Foundation, it works with entrepreneurs, empowering them with the tools and resources to break down barriers that stand in the way of starting and growing their businesses. And eventually, I'll be able to just rattle that off. You can't see, but I'm reading that. Today, we have Cedric Fonville of N.I.C.E NWA. Many of you watching will recognize Cedric. He is a 1 Million Cups organizer, friend, and active member of the local entrepreneurial community. Looking forward to hear more on his update from N.I.C.E NWA today. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Cedric.
Thank you, Caleb, for that warm introduction. Welcome back to myself, because this is my second or third time presenting at 1 Million Cups. The last time was around November 2019, back before COVID, and we all took for granted the ability to be able to meet in person. But I'm back. I'm making the best of the situation as everyone else is. I don't have my coffee, Caleb, but I've been more of a tea guy lately, trying to switch it up a little bit so I can get my caffeine addiction to still respond to my cups of coffee going forward. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you're able to tune in live and engage in the comments, ask questions. We'll get to those at the end. And if you watch the recording, reach out to me if you have any additional questions. Today is essentially a little bit different of a presentation than what you would have heard last time if you came to see me present at 1 Million Cups in November. And last time I talked about my personal story, my journey from the military into entrepreneurship, got really specific there. Not going to spend as much time on that today, but also talked about how when I first started N.I.C.E, it was not originally a photo or a video company. And in fact, out of a school project in college, it was actually going to be a coaching business. I was looking forward to graduating, becoming a business coach with zero experience, by the way, and helping small business owners that were mom and pop size with the problems that you can see here on the screen. And these are the problems that were most common, most familiar for these mom and pop size companies. They had challenges with their marketing. They had challenges with managing their money. And they also had challenges with managing people. So finding new hires, keeping the new hires happy because they can't afford to pay them more money, and they would have a frequency to go to a bigger corporation and make more money. So those are some of the common challenges of just small businesses in general, especially those mom and pop size companies. And I remember focusing specifically on marketing because I thought that was a young man's game as far as coaching goes. So that led me to niche down onto a more specific photo and video type of journey for my business. So I had a lot of fun in the last 3.5 years, creating photos, creating videos for small businesses here in Northwest Arkansas, a few across the state, as well as some nonprofits. But today I want to talk about something a little bit different as we go into, or I guess we're already into, Black History Month. So I want to talk about some of the common challenges that not just businesses face in general, but more specifically, Black-owned businesses. So what are some of the common challenges, the common themes that they specifically seem to be statistically more likely to have to overcome? So as anyone would do in the COVID time, I've spent a lot of time researching, watching Netflix, watching YouTube on my phone. So I used that time I had to do some research. And I checked out Google articles, I checked out YouTube documentaries, I checked out Netflix. I even called people, which is something as an introvert and as a 2021 human being does not happen enough. But I wanted to find out as much as I could about some of the specific challenges of Black-owned businesses. And what I learned was that we still face those same problems I mentioned earlier, but there's some additional challenges that we also tend to face. And the number one thing is a lack of funds. And if you notice here, I wrote over under, and there's a lot of direction in terms of lack of funds that we tend to have to overcome. And by over, I mean we start our companies before we get started with our companies, and we're doing our planning, I should say. We tend to overestimate just how quickly and how much revenue we'll actually bring into the business. And as a finance major that I am, I was still one of those people who was a victim to overshooting and overreaching and thinking that I would get to this financial revenue point a lot quicker than what reality would actually show me. And that's a common theme for anyone of any color. But for Black people in general, that becomes a bigger problem because it's a lot harder for us in terms of the data, in terms of the statistics, to get approved for loans, to have strong credit history with favorable interest rates. And that creates a snowball of other problems, including when you're in trouble, you don't have as many options to essentially give yourself some financial margin. Luckily, through Startup Junkie and other organizations out there, they're creating resources like Kiva. If you haven't heard of Kiva, they provide interest-free loans, and they're doing tons of programs here in Northwest Arkansas, specifically for minorities, specifically for women-owned businesses. So that's a great resource that exists already. Another challenge with the financial piece is we don't tend to have a strong sense of finance. So personal finance, business finance, both of those things are complicated, but we have to have an increased understanding of just what those numbers are and be able to put ourselves in a healthy position. Another challenge that we face, and these are not necessarily in a particular order, we only have a few here, is that we tend to not operate off of a business plan. And as I said earlier, these are common problems for any race or ethnicity, but for people of color in general, we, for whatever reason, don't have a business plan that we refer to on a regular basis. And maybe we created a business plan before we got started, or maybe early in the stages, but we haven't updated it. We haven't gone back and looked at it. We haven't referred to it to make our decisions. And we tend to shoot from the hip. And that's a challenge because, as you can see here on the screen, there's some very important criteria here that we have to be able to be clear on. We have to understand what is the problem that our business is solving for our customers and for our prospective customers. We have to understand what our customers look like. We also have to understand how to reach them. And as you can see, the cost structure and the revenue, that ties back into understanding the finance side of the business. And then the last thing on here that seems to be a recurring theme based on the research, based on the phone calls, talking to my friends who are business owners as well. And it comes down to having a lack of experience as a business owner. Now, the stats would show you that most minority children, I would say, don't grow up having parents that are business owners. Therefore, they don't have as often of an opportunity to get that work experience at a young age and learn how to run a business at a young age in more of an apprenticeship-like role. And they also don't have as much of an education going into business school, going into training that is specifically tailored towards gaining experience around entrepreneurship. So it's like they're learning on the fly. They're learning these challenges and mistakes for the first time through trial and error. And that can be expensive, that can be time consuming, and that is incredibly difficult. So moving forward, those are just a couple of the main themes of the challenges that I discovered through the research, through these conversations with Black-owned businesses and trying to understand their world and their perspective. So as you can see here, access to funding is one of the big challenges. That's the financial piece I mentioned earlier, having a business plan. And then lastly, having experience that's actually applicable to running a business, which we all know the business failure rates are already high for all populations. But these three things combined make it even more challenging for minority-owned businesses to essentially be successful at the level that's equal to their counterparts. So let's look at some of the opportunities to address some of these needs and sort of where my idea and my focus for 2021 is leaning me towards. Now, I've been doing photo and video and I've enjoyed it, but it was never the original stopping point for me in my business. I've always wanted to go deeper with clients and prospective clients to help them beyond just creating content, to help them beyond just being able to better market their companies. Because I know marketing is only one piece of the equation when it comes to running a successful small business. So as part of my work that I've done with current clients and as part of memberships that I've been a part of, I've had the fortune of being able to be exposed to business roundtables, also known as CEO roundtables, masterminds, use whatever word you want to include there. And I've learned so much through those experiences as a member, as a client. I've just walked away with so much more wisdom that my solution to the challenges that we just presented earlier for Black-owned businesses is to introduce them to this model. Usually this model is pretty common. As I said earlier, we have different names for it, but it's not as affordable as other business resources. And the way a business accelerator or a roundtable works is that essentially you gather with other peers who are business owners as well. And a coach who is an accomplished CEO or business owner is going to lead that group. And he leads them in a group discussion on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, on a bi-monthly basis, whatever that cadence is around business issues. So you're learning about business, you're bringing issues that you're struggling with in your business to that group, and the group is working together to make sure that you walk away with a list of resources, with a list of possible solutions that you can take and make your own of and have that bought in experience from the group's perspective. Now, the way this one is going to work is because I like to run things through a data and a sort of a model-like approach, is that this is going to be an inaugural minority business accelerator, meaning the very first of its kind for my company, N.I.C.E. in general. And so it's going to be a little bit more abbreviated. We're only going to cover 6 sessions, but in those 6 sessions, the group of members will actually focus on these 3 areas. Number 1 is strengthening their self-awareness. A lot of times we are locked into the day-to-day duties of a small business that we forget about the big picture. And so this is an opportunity for us to take a step from working in the business back out and work on the business. So that's things like scaling and delegating and understanding the vision and the direction of the company that sometimes we forget about because we're so much in a survival mentality on a day-to-day basis. Another thing we're going to focus on is, as I mentioned earlier, is that we don't have a business plan a lot of times, and that's because those things are complicated. They're 13 pages, they're 16 pages, they're 30 pages, they're essays, they're stats and data, and it's overwhelming. So it makes sense that people would put that to the side and try to just do it without the formality. Now, luckily, there's a lean canvas business model that's a very abbreviated version of a more robust business model. It's usually a single page, and it covers the essences of a business plan. And we saw that earlier in the image on one of my slides about the business plan. Things like the problem, the solution, what makes your company unique, what makes you personally unique, and what are your methods and your path to reach your target customers. These are very essential things, and we want to make sure that people leave having a clear-cut understanding of exactly what those key areas of business are. And then lastly, finance is an important element of life, and especially more so when you're in business. If you're a small business, your personal finance and your business finance often overlap because you're so small that those two have not become separate in terms of credit worthiness, in terms of getting loans approved. So you have to have a strong knowledge base of both areas. So we'll spend some time on that as well. And here we can see that some of the objectives for the program, after the 6 sessions, here's what we hope people accomplish, the participants in this accelerator program. We hope that they leave there with an increased understanding of sales, including marketing, how to target, how to actually narrow down a niche versus shooting your marketing at everyone. And we hope they also have an opportunity to be a part of a community. I think a lot of us have heard the famous African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so that's what we mean by community. We want you to be able to have peers who understand the world of entrepreneurship. They understand the challenges that you're facing, the stress, the worries, the anxieties, but they also have their own perspectives, their own experiences, their own wisdoms, where you can bring a challenge to them. And hopefully someone else has already come across that. So through that community, you can learn from one another versus having to learn the hard way and learn the expensive way. And then lastly, we want to make sure, obviously, that we increase the likeliness or the likelihood for success for all of these participants. We want to, focus on the statistics, the numbers, and see those numbers climb in a more positive direction, where we're seeing more minority-owned businesses, Black businesses in particular, actually succeed and actually make it to the point of thriving rather than just surviving. And then coming closer to our end here, some final thoughts here. We want to make sure that a couple of things are also built into this programming. And as I hinted on earlier, these types of programs already exist. And you look around, you can find business roundtables, CEO roundtables, masterminds, but the entry point financially for these are usually pretty expensive. I think that the cheapest would be a $300 a month commitment that I've ever seen, but more likely you're going to be paying around $600 to $700 at a minimum, up to about $1,800 a month to be a part of a program that brings in speakers, that's led by an expert CEO who's the coach of the group, and that gives you access to this wisdom and to this community. And I know that's a barrier financially, so I wanted to make sure that we had a program where financial health and wellness was not going to limit people from having access to the material, to the program. And because of that, we want to make sure this program is accessible, it's affordable, and we're going to do that by getting sponsorships. And there'll be an application process so people have a chance to state why they feel they'll be a good fit for the program. But this will be for full-time business owners who are looking to grow their business, and we're going to do our best to subsidize 100% of the cost as much as we can, and if not 100%, as close to that number as possible. And this is the inaugural event, as I mentioned earlier, so it's a pilot version. It's a little bit more limited with only 6 sessions. And we already have had the conversations with the speakers who have been so kind to agree to donate their time and speaking as the subject matter experts in some of these criteria that we mentioned earlier, such as marketing, such as sales, such as being able to come up with a vision statement for your business, and making sure that people have that subject matter expertise to learn from, as well as each other to support them as they continue to strengthen their business acumen. And this is just the beginning of hopefully many. If it goes well, I'm hoping that I'll be able to focus a lot more of my time on this coaching type of opportunity to help bring up the underrepresented demographics. And so that means that as we find success in this first cohort, we'll be moving on and doing additional cohorts for veteran-owned business owners in a very similar type structure, as well as for women-owned businesses. So hopefully, we get an opportunity here to build that momentum going into that, and we can make that transition into doing more programs for those demographics as well. And we'll also have other resources for people who may not have the time capacity, the availability to be a part of a monthly program such as this. We'll have video resources. We'll have other things that we can offer to our entrepreneurs. But that's essentially what it is. It's a version of what I've already been exposed to that I think really can bring some value to our minority-owned business owners here. And I think that it's a great way to build this sense of community and camaraderie while also learning as much as you possibly can about how to be successful in the business venture that you are in. And that's my time today. And if you have any questions, you can see my contact information is on the screen. Feel free to snap a photo of that, do a screenshot of that, whatever is easiest for you. If you have any questions that you want to follow up with me later, or feel free to put a question into the chat if you have a question for me now. And that is my time. I want to thank you all in advance for tuning in. I'll stick around here for any questions.
Awesome. That was great, Cedric. And we already have a question in the comment box from Martha. Martha asked, how can local entrepreneurs support organizations that are run by white directors and executives better serve local Black entrepreneurs?
Okay, you might have to read that one more time. That was a good question.
I'm sorry. How can local entrepreneurs support organizations? How can local entrepreneurial support organizations that are run by white directors and executives better serve local Black entrepreneurs?
All right, thank you, Caleb, for rereading that. Thank you, Martha, for the good question. Luckily, I'm so happy that I have such great friends. People who are of all diversities, and even my friends now who are white executives, white CEOs, white leaders in Northwest Arkansas. When I mentioned this idea maybe 6 months ago, maybe 9 months ago, they were so excited to support it. And they asked me the exact same question. They said, how can I support you on this? How can I support you personally, Cedric, and just knowing that we want to make sure that things are as equal as possible and opportunistic for all. So that led me to reach out to some of them as potential speakers. So coming and donating their time, if they have a particular expertise in an area of business, that they can share that value and wisdom with the group. And I'll make sure that I'm there to facilitate, those sessions and make sure that everyone walks away with, application of that knowledge. The second thing is that some of them have even offered to just contribute to help, subsidize some of the costs associated with this. Because I know if we charge, the market rate for something like this, a lot of people would want to be a part of it, but wouldn't be able to afford it. So those are the two ways, being able to donate time and expertise by presenting, by speaking or mentoring someone here, or if they have interest in sponsoring one of the program, one of the scholarships, then that's another way as well.
Awesome. Brian asks, will this be offered as an on-demand course for those wanting the content?
Yeah, that's a excellent question to think through, Brian. I appreciate that one as well. We will have, probably not as early as April, as this one that we're showcasing here is expected to launch, but there will be a self-paced version of it based on some of the feedback that we get in the first round. Because I know that some of the challenges we've had in just getting to this point is getting everyone's schedule on the same page. So my schedule, the speakers that we've been talking to, plus, the 4 up to 11 participants that we've been talking to, all on the same schedule to have a 2 or 4 hour workshop, essentially. It's kind of a challenge. So I want to make sure that if people are unable to attend live for whatever reason, and these are all virtual, by the way, but they'll be able to either watch those recordings or we'll have a self-paced version of it that's probably a little bit more simplified and is shortened for people to just watch and take at their own leisure.
What does success look like for you with this program?
Yeah, success for me, I read this, maybe it's an article by Gary Vaynerchuk or Sarah Blakely from Spanx. It's a Venn diagram. And anytime I could bring a Venn diagram into my adulthood, I always try to, because I learned it in school. I want to use as much as possible these random things. But she talks about how you figure out what you want to do with your life. And that's an intersection of these 3 circles of what are you passionate about? What are you good at? And what can you make money off of? And where those 3 things intersect is where you should try to build your focus on. So I'm hoping that as a success, this will be something that I'm passionate about, that I can be good at enough to bring value to all that are involved, and that we can ultimately, make it a sustainable business model to continue building up on going forward. So we can have more groups, after one class graduates, we can have the next enrollment for the following year. But we can also do the same thing for veteran-owned businesses, as a veteran myself, and then for women-owned businesses as well, and just continue to build those senses of community within those demographics.
Morgan asks, or she says, so awesome. Does the accelerator have a website yet? And how can we share about it?
I have a flyer, no website yet. My contact information is right there, and I can send you a flyer as early as today. I'm very much a perfectionist, paralysis by analysis. So I always have to get everything perfect, which I know is not the way to be. Don't judge me, Caleb. So I will send it to you as a rough draft in quotation marks if you want that, Morgan.
Absolutely. Martha asks also, how can local entrepreneur support groups run? Wait, no. Oh, that was a question from earlier. I guess I saw it twice. All right. Any more questions? Feel free to drop it in the comment section. Let's see. Well, if we don't have any more questions in the comment section, you as a 1 Million Cups organizer knows exactly what's coming next as far as questions. What can we as a community do to help you?
Absolutely. And every time I know that question's coming, but it still gives me the same level of anxiety thinking, oh, here's my moment. Well, I think that the best thing that could be helpful in this for me personally is that I want to, and maybe this is like a data integrity type of response. I want to make sure that I talk to people who are outside of my social circle already, and make sure that as many people as possible have a chance to just understand, this program, while it's still going to be at no cost, hopefully, to everyone. So if anyone has anyone that they can think of who may be benefiting from something like this, who you think may be really strengthened by going through this experience, I would love to be connected with them. Love to share the rough draft flyer with them and have a phone call, get to know them, and just get more opportunities out there into the general public.
Awesome. And I believe we can drop your contact information in the comment section. We can probably also put that up on the screen again for those watching. Cedric, we appreciate you for joining us this
Thank you.
morning. Great presentation. Also want to thank everybody for watching today. We appreciate you for tuning in, and we hope you join us again next week, same time, same place. Regardless of where you are, you can watch on Facebook Live or YouTube Live. And enjoy the presentation. Have a good day.
All right. Have a good day, Caleb. Thank you.
Bye.